We are Smooth Jazz Notes here with Marc Antoine at the Catalina Jazztrax Festival.
That's it.
On Catalina Island, Smooth Jazz Island. And Marc, we are so happy to be here with you today.
Well, I'm happy to be here with you guys too.
So your new CD, My Classical Way, brings you back to your roots. Please tell us about it.
Well, in a way, yes, because classical music was really my first love as far as the guitar went. I saw a friend of mine play guitar for the first time when I was about 11 years old, and I was completely infatuated by this. It was like, how could you get a sound like this out of a box with 6 strings? So I started, playing whatever he was playing, with a few chords, like popular songs. And then I got into classical very fast. And for me, it was just in the world. The melodies were great, the playing was really challenging. And I wanted to go back to this because it was like really my first love. And it's important to go back.
By the time you were 17, you were already an accomplished guitar player. How did you get started in the music business?
I think it was pretty much destiny. I started playing clubs with friends, and from there I went to Paris. I was born and raised in Paris, and I moved to a west part of France when I was about maybe like 8 or 9 years old. My parents decided to move to, it's like everybody. You live in New York, you live in LA, and sometimes you want to go and live in a smaller place, less activities everywhere. So we moved out there, and I just fell in love with music when I was about 11 years old. And the first time I really played an instrument, I was 11 years old, but the first time I was really attracted to music, I probably was about 4 or 5 years old. And what happened is, I remember seeing that teacher, for example, in the class, and I felt like the desk was so far away from me because I was already singing melodies from the radio station. And for me, it was something that was really part of me, the music. So I think it came from there.
Well, we understand that you're also an accomplished swimmer, and please tell us about this.
Well, I started swimming when I was about 9 years old. And the funny thing, I was so scared of water. Very scared about the water, yeah, very scared. And somebody from my family one day just threw me into the water about 6, 7 years old and said, now you swim. And I started swimming like a little dog. And then 3 years later, I was here in a pool, swimming, and with, coaches and things like that. So I got really, there's something about water and swimming that's got a groove to it. And I was actually what you call a flyer in a way. I mean, Michael Phelps is my idol, but back then it was Marc Spitz. My times were like 72, Munich, the Olympic Games, so I saw this and I got into it. And I loved it. I loved it. It was something very, very, very particular for me.
Well, in the summer of 1981, you had an accident to your left hand.
Yes, I did.
Please tell us about
Well,
it.
it was bad news, really, because I had like first prize for classical music, and I was really playing very well. All the classical, Segovia, John Williams, all these things, Toribio Santos, and many others. And that's what I wanted to do for for me that was it. The classical music was the thing. I wanted to have a career in there, and all of a sudden everything was shattered, completely shattered. And it was a very difficult situation for me because I couldn't play music for about 3 years. I tried to play trumpet because it was just one hand. And I blew my lips right away because I was trying to practice the trumpet like I was practicing the classical guitar, and I just blew my lips, so I couldn't play anymore. Then I was like the piano, but with one hand it's kind of limited. So it was a very, very, very difficult time. But I came back. I really wanted to come back, even though the surgeon said that I could never play music again.
So how did you accomplish that?
I think when you have faith in what you do, it's like you can really do some amazing things, you know. When I hear stories about miracles, it's actually not a miracle. It's like so much faith into what you do that you actually come back to the level. In my case, I couldn't say it was back to the level because I never was back to the classical level I was at. But I don't think I could have done what I've accomplished now if maybe without that accident. I'd still be playing some other things and not be here today. It's amazing how destiny sometimes takes you different places.
So then you got your health back,
Yes.
and you started playing again, and in 1988 you relocated to London.
That's right.
Why did you do that?
I went over there to play with Basha. I was in the studio. I was playing already a lot of sessions in Paris, jazz, African music. I used to love playing with African musicians because they had such a different approach melodically, and the rhythm was just so vast. You know, they have such a language, rhythm language over there. It's amazing. It's nothing like the R&B, for example. You know, it's over there. It's everywhere. There's no one. It's like I remember they used to tell me, don't look for the one, like the one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Don't look for it because you'll never find it. And it's true. It's like almost like some kind of voodoo going on into the music. And I used to love playing with these guys. So one day I was in the studio, in a very famous studio in Paris, playing on a record for a very famous African artist called Relima in French, from Cameroon. And the musicians from Duran Duran were downstairs recording for Duran Duran, but they were just like spending their days just jamming because the stars were just having fun there or visiting Paris. So they would spend like days and days in the studio just playing, waiting for these guys to come in and decide to record. When you're at such a high level of stardom, you know, I guess you can do whatever you want. I remember going into the studio and had about 200 or 300 groupies outside. It was just amazing. And so I told my friends, tell these guys, because I didn't speak English at the time, tell these guys I want to go jam with them. So I went to jam with them, and after a while the bass player went to my friend and said, you gotta tell this guy to go to London and play with Basha. And the funny thing was, in France we didn't pronounce Basha, we pronounced it Basia. So I didn't understand what he meant.
Oh.
But Basha was huge on TV. I mean, Basha, I'm sorry. She was huge on TV in France. And then I ended up over there in London playing with her. And for me, it was just, you know, the door opening to the world, because it's kind of difficult when you come from a country like France to just open yourself to the world, you know. Unlike, for example, Spain, which has had a very strong Latin community as well, so you can open the doors to South America and then into even America now, you know. So for me, it was like the big move, 1988.
So how did you end up in LA?
So from there, I started playing with a lot of different bands and doing a lot of touring, and I ended up in Japan. And I met a friend of mine over there, and he wanted to do some rock music. And I was pretty much into rock music at the time, which is quite interesting. People would not believe I could play rock music, but I loved it. And we put a rock band together. We had a little bit of success, and we ended up in Los Angeles. And I stayed there for 2 or 3 years, and then we went separate ways. And at that point, I really didn't know what to do. I didn't know if I was to, you know, come back to Europe or stay in LA, and I loved LA at the time. It was just great. The scene was great, the musicians were great. I met a lot of friends over there. Paul Brown, which I made a record with, I met back in 1990 in Los Angeles. We became friends, and then I stayed there. I decided to make my own music.